everything gets done behind closed doors. You have to be prepared to be antagonistic, and you have to be prepared to get a bit angry. To be bluntly honest with you, most of the agents here in WA are shit. They don't know what they're doing.
All right, this week's pod, it's a special one. We sit down with Aussie Real Estate Exposed, Dave, all the way from Western Australia. Man, this was a great chat.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely going to be some controversial topics for the listeners out there. But I think that's what's interesting is you're getting a look and hearing about things under the hood.
Yeah.
Right? What's going on in the background. These are things that usually are not talked about. Right, so definitely you got to tune in for this one.
I'm a little bit scared to listen back. Very controversial. Don't miss out. Anyone that is listening will not see, or anyone that's watching will see that it's a little bit different this week. It's myself. I'm Michael Carboni. You can call me Carbs. Jason, the He-Man, the sexiest voice in property podcasting.
Hello, everybody.
I had to bring you along for this one because. Sexy voice.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because there was no one else.
So knowledgeable. No one else is here. I was getting there. You're taking all my jokes. Okay. No one else was here, so I had to bring Jason along for the ride. But we've got a very special guest today on Property Now for the first time ever. He's joining us all the way from WA, and he's going to talk to us about real estate agents and their shifty secrets.
Secrets.
So this week's episode, we're going to jump into the hidden secrets of real estate agents that every buyer should know. We'll go through some of the sneaky tactics. I'm using all of these words just for clickbait, right? Sneaky tactics that agents use to provide our listeners with the tools to navigate their property purchases more confidently. Let's make this fun. I used ChatGPT again for that intro, but I guess today I want to introduce Mr. Dave Ellis. Dave, how are you, man?
Very well, mate. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. It's I understand you're over in WA much earlier in the morning than it is for us. So thank you for getting up early just to be part of our barbecue property chat.
Absolutely no problems. Just excuse the bags under the eyes.
All good, man.
But no, it is a nice it's a nice morning over here in WA. I don't know how the weather is over east.
Stop showing off. It's very cold. I'm wearing a t-shirt and I am freezing.
It's cool here as well, but it's a nice cool. But we'll see how we go.
It's pretty much a different country now, Western Australia. Hey, like you guys should officially just split it off and just do your own thing.
Well, I think they'd love that. Full disclosure, and I say this in my TikToks as well. I'm actually from Sydney originally,
nice.
Born and raised. It's really interesting being over here and hearing a lot of the, dare I say, anti-East rhetoric, and their justification of it, where they're saying, oh, but they hate us over here as well. And it's hilarious because as an Eastern States person, you may agree with this, you may not. We kind of just don't think about.
Yeah, we don't. That's the sad part. We don't. Yeah.
Unless we're talking about mining or something. But it is interesting hearing about the anti-West and East thing, and it's interesting living here. I'll tell you that.
I think I can say us Sydney-siders, we hate Queenslanders during State of Origin. We hate Victorians for the rest of the year, but we don't really think about WA and South Australia as much.
Goodbye, listeners from Victoria.
See you later, listeners from Victoria
and Queensland.
We know it's all friendly banter.
That's all right.
But we do always.
Anyway, it's fine.
We do always say in our conversations, a lot of our convos, because we're based here in Sydney, a lot of our understanding and knowledge is very Sydney or New South Wales centric. Yeah. So it's good to have someone on the other side of Australia here with us today. Whenever I meet someone new at a barbecue, I say, hey, what's your name? What do you do for work? How are you going? So let's get to know you a little bit. We're gonna settle it. You're an ex-real estate agent. Talk to us about that.
Sure. Ex-real estate. I was in the industry for a few years. Been involved in property and so on and so forth for many years. My folks have been pretty heavily involved in it as well. Dad's a developer and mum's in interior design. So sort of in the blood, if that makes sense.
You're born for it.
Got out of it a few years ago due to health reasons, actually. And it's not something that I generally advertise wide and far, and I'll leave it at that. It's been really interesting because obviously being on the other side of the fence, I'm not, dare I say, just a dumb buyer. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of real estate agents do treat people that way. So that's why when I started looking for a property here in WA when I moved here, I thought, you know what, some of this stuff that I'm seeing is just awful. Someone needs to pull the veil back a little bit. So hence the podcast and hence where you guys found me.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where that is. As for what I'm doing now, I'm actually in marketing. I specialize in AI.
Interesting.
Which is really interesting because you use ChatGPT to do your intro, and it's getting scary.
Is AI going to take all of our jobs? Is it true, or are we safe for a little bit?
Look, I think there are going to be some jobs that are going to go to the wayside. Absolutely. I don't think it's going to go all of the jobs, and I think there's going to be some people that are going to be retooled into, how basically wrangling AI. They're going to be the ones writing the Skynet code, if you want to put it that way. I think there's with any major disruptor, right? I mean, we all love those terms, disruptor and industry first and all that kind of stuff. There's always an element, I suppose, of people who will lose their job or they'll have to get retrained in something else. But I think there's always going to be a call for the human element. At least for now, and particularly in the arts and things like that. And that's the other side of what I do. I'm a muso, hence the hoodie on a Tuesday morning. I think it's getting scary. I think it's getting more lifelike and more human-like, particularly with some of the AIs out there. But I don't think anyone's at risk of never being employed. Particularly, probably not in Australia, where we still tend to just rip stuff out of the ground and sell it to the highest bidder.
100%, man. AI can't do that. I was watching Jerry Seinfeld. He was here in Sydney a few nights ago, and he had a little joke, and I'm going to completely fuck it up, and you can swear on this podcast, Dave, so feel all good, man. We'll bleep it out. But Jerry basically said, we're so dumb we needed to create artificial intelligence. We're smart enough to create artificial intelligence, but now we're so dumb that we're not sure if it's actually a good thing or a bad thing for society. But it's pretty interesting. And Jerry said the joke a lot better than me, Jay, so I apologise for that.
Yeah, right.
Mate, when you were in real estate, Dave, were you... Yeah, right. When you were in real estate, was it when you were in Sydney or after you had moved to WA?
No, when I was in Sydney.
So you understand the Sydney game, and now you understand the Perth game as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the similarities are there, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people. I mean, okay, there is a fundamental difference, which I've waxed lyrical about on my TikTok numerous times, and that is how property is bought and sold, i.e., auction versus.
Yep.
They say private treaty, but I can't call it private treaty because of the way it's done. It just doesn't sit well with me. It is technically, yes, it's a private treaty sale, but it's not. The laws here are not as they are in New South Wales, i.e. nowhere near as regulated.
Can you explain that for us who don't understand that side?
Absolutely. So in New South Wales, when you list a property, you've either got to do one of two things. Either you put it to market with a price, and if that price is put on it, then it has to be either a set price or a range which can be no greater than 10% from the lowest number. So if you're advertising a property and you think it's worth $1 million, you can put a property on for 1 million, and that's the asking price, or you can say $1 million to 1.1, for example. If it's an auction, normally they give a range because you never know what's going to happen on the day. And the truth is, you never know what a property is going to sell for. You're going to have a bit of an idea. Generally, you have a pretty good idea, but you never know exactly what a buyer's going to pay. Over here in WA, that's all out the window. You can put it on for a price. You can put it on for a range. The range can be $500,000 to $1 million if you want, $500,000 to $1 million. You can put it on for just offers. You can put it for offers over, which is illegal in New South Wales. You're not allowed to use that language. It's basically anything. And because there's no transparency, i.e. I shouldn't say there aren't any auctions. There are very few auctions here in WA. And I mean very few. I mean, there's about 10 or something a weekend, as opposed to Sydney where there's several hundred, if not cracking into the thousands.
They're pretty much all auctions. Yeah, almost.
Because of that, there's no real-time market feedback. Everything gets done behind closed doors. Agents, frankly, to be bluntly honest with you, most of the agents here in WA are shit. They don't know what they're doing. And frankly, they probably couldn't organise a booze up in a brewery. That's just my opinion. And I say most of them because I have dealt with a couple that have been really good, quite transparent, quite open, quite up front. But the vast majority of them just have no idea, and it's because of the lack of regulation in the industry. It's because there aren't these rules that there are in New South Wales, basically to keep the bastards honest, if you want to put it that way.
And those rules are fairly. When I say new, probably a couple of years old over here, hey Jace, where you used to be, there was less regulation than out in the Wild West, but that's tightened up a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. It's all around the underquoting issue, right?
Well, I still see on guides here in Sydney, auction guide 1.5 million, and then it sells for 1.7 to 1.8. At auction. So you still see some discrepancies like that over here. And again, like you say, Dave, it's hard to regulate because you don't actually know what it's going to go for. But you'd think agents that understand the suburb and the market could get it a bit closer if they really wanted to.
Yeah, but the motivation is different, Michael, is that they're trying to get as much interest from people in the property. So they're not actually trying to give you an accurate estimate of what the property is likely to sell for.
Yeah.
So I think the difference from what Dave is saying between New South Wales and WA is that agents need to put a figure. It's 1 million to 1.1. It could sell for 1.9, for example, because they've underquoted it. But because you put that number, I think if somebody wants to make a complaint to the Office of Fair Trading, there's a bit more recourse as opposed to not having any regulation, because then you can say, well, there's no regulation, I don't have to do anything, even though that I feel in New South Wales that having to put that range doesn't stop underquoting.
Yeah.
But I think it restricts a little bit, for agents that are worried about potentially there's any consequences. They're not as free to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's trying to do.
I find it funny, Dave, you say the agents are shit over there, and I can't speak to that, obviously. I think Sydney's different. New South Wales is, I think when the market is easy, like when it's a seller's market, all agents look phenomenal. But things are tougher over here at the moment. So you really start to see who are the great agents, who are the standout agents versus who are not. And I always joke that agents I would use to sell my property, I would never buy a property off them because I know they're going to get the best deal for me if I sell with them, but I know they're probably going to get the best deal out of me if I buy with them. So it's always some things to look out for. You've mentioned, Dave, your TikTok channel a couple of times. Tell us about it. What's it called? Where do we need to follow? And why did you start it?
Sure. So I started the TikTok quite literally because I was just getting jack of not being able to. No one was listening, right? So I've spoken to numerous people over here. So you have DMIRS, which is kind of like the fair trading, if you will. It's not really, but DMIRS is the Department of Mines Industry and something, resources specialists or something. And for some reason, real estate agents fall under that. I've spoken to REWA about some of the conduct that I've seen. I've also had a meeting with the state government about it and representatives from the state government. And to be bluntly honest with you, the vast majority of the things that I've said are falling on deaf ears. Wow. And the common response that I get is, it sounds like they're just getting the best price for the owner. So I went, you know what, hang this, I'm going to start this TikTok. And it's kind of been successful. The TikTok handle is Aussie Real Estate Exposed. And I tend to answer a lot of questions from people who put questions underneath the videos that I do. And, there's everything on there from, hey, can you give me some tips on putting an offer on a house, right through to what do you think about negative gearing? Which is something I tend not to weigh into all that much, although I did recently. It's a whole bunch of different things, and including what I'm seeing in the market as well. So I'll go to an open house and, walk through and have a look and then give you my thoughts once I get outside the property. I do try to do the right thing by the agent as well and not be that guy that's walking around on his phone doing TikTok in the middle of an open, particularly in a hot market where there's like 60 groups of people there and so on and so forth, which, by the way, if you've got 60 or 70 groups of people coming through a home, the place is underquoted. It doesn't matter which way you cut that. And I've had real estate agents actually admit that. I've seen it on TikTok. Them admitting basically we're putting the prices on the properties that we are, otherwise we wouldn't get any interest, which is it's underquoting 101. So that was basically the idea of it. I haven't got the I haven't quite got to the point yet where I can really, expose and name people yet for fear of getting sued.
Do you want to get to that point?
I would love to.
Getting sued?
Genuinely,
It's a big goal.
I would absolutely love to get to that
That
point. but
reminds me of
unfortunately-
Purple Pingers.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he's named people, named organisations. He's
Yeah.
received letters, of being sued, being threatened, and so forth. And then he continues to to name. Might be helpful that he's a lawyer himself, I think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
But no, I'd love to get to that point, particularly when you have interactions with agents like, and I won't name the agent, but I'll read you something. I pulled this up earlier. I was looking at a property in Mount Lawley. Now, if you don't know Perth very well, Mount Lawley is an inner city suburb. It's about probably 6 or 7 minutes from the CBD. Think kind of like Redfern, that sort of area. Just to give you a bit of an idea. Now, this property was listed, didn't have a price guide on it. So I emailed the agent. And normally when you email an agent or you call them, you say, hey, what's the guide? And they go, oh, it's sort of around about this. This was the response I got for verbatim. Thank you so much for reaching out with your inquiry about the property in Mount Lawley. We genuinely appreciate your interest and would love to assist you in any way possible. I'm sorry to inform you, we don't have a specific price guide available for this property. The real estate market in Perth has been exceptionally dynamic over the last 3 months, with house prices witnessing substantial increases and even exceeding last year's peak prices. As such, we find ourselves navigating relatively uncharted waters. Given the market conditions and to ensure fairness and transparency, we have decided to adopt a market-driven approach to let the sale price be a true reflection of the prevailing market conditions.
Far out, man. Why don't you tell us what you'd like to pay for this property?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Exactly. So I actually emailed him back. And this is one of the things that I always say to agents, and decent agents will actually answer you. And I said to him, look, I understand that when you do an appraisal, you have to do a CMA. What did you put on the CMA?
Yeah.
That's a pretty direct question, right? And the answer I got back was, this information is private and confidential for the seller, and I'm not allowed to disclose it to you. The seller has instructed me to sell this property without a price guide, as she is looking to the market to see what the market feels the property is worth.
Yeah.
So they're all hiding behind the owner.
Yeah.
It's the owner that's doing it, which is hilarious because they're supposed to be professionals and they're supposed to be service professionals, and they've got no idea how to do it.
Look, they've certainly advised the owner, right? So you can't. There's 100% that they've done that. Can you just take a step back, Dave? For those playing along at home, CMA. What's CMA?
So CMA is a comparative market analysis.
Yep.
So basically, it's these are the latest things that have sold in the suburb that are similar to it. Therefore, your place is probably worth around this.
Yeah, great. So every agent will do this for their client. It's law across the country that they need to do this before they start selling. So for them to say, oh, look, we're not too sure what it's worth, they know what the comparisons are, right?
Yeah, because you can't just pick a number out of thin air, when you're doing an appraisal and the owner's like, how much you reckon you can get for this property. You can't just go, randomly. Yeah. It's this number. You've got to justify. You've got to support it with some evidence. So that's also the reason why you should have a price guide, because you found that evidence to support the price that you think you'd be able to achieve, which is also a range as well.
That's exactly right. And I can remember walking into a place here in North Perth that I was looking at buying. And the agent, I said to the agent, I said, what's price guide? And to fairness, she did have it listed. I just couldn't remember. I looked at about 9 that day. And I walked in and she said, the guide is 7 to 750, 750, you'll buy it. And I went, sorry, what'd you say? I'm not used to hearing that.
Yeah, wow.
And she explained the whole thing to me. I was like, oh, okay, that's fair enough, Now, I think it ended up going for 760 or something like that. But she was pretty well on the money, and she was very honest. And I've spoken to her numerous times, and even got her to do appraisals on properties that I'm looking at in the same area that she works.
Yeah, brilliant.
Because just that one interaction made me go, okay, this lady knows what she's talking about, knows how to deal with people. I'm going to keep going to her. And I would use her to sell a property, absolutely, because I know that the buyers would get treated right, which is kind of paramount.
It's a lesson
not
for
pushing
any
it.
agent that's listening, right? Like, it's not just about the one sale. Don't do all you can to get the most, squeeze the most out. Think about the relationships. Think about the next deal. Think about the networking. And I think a lot of the good agents do that. Man, 760 in Perth, where's our eyes are like, whoa, that's fucking amazing. Like, what do you get for 760 over there?
A lot.
Far out. Let's go.
One of the reasons I moved over here.
Sorry, where's Perth?
Oh, it's another country. You will need a passport.
Bring your passport with you, mate. The 760 will get you quite a bit here in Perth. Well, I should caveat that. It used to get you a lot more, probably about 12, 18 months ago.
Yep.
Prices have gone off their head here in Perth. And I mean off their head. There's a place in Mount Lawley I was looking at probably about 12 months ago. It sold for around the 450 mark. I was speaking to the agent the other day about it, and it just sold again for 560. And that's 12 months.
Yeah, nice, man.
Yeah. So, Dave, with your experiences dealing with agents, is this through you wanting to buy your own place, looking at investment properties for yourself, or are you just going out on a weekend, sort of
For TikTok content.
like a detective,
No,
undercover double agent?
I am actually in the market at the moment. And I've been looking for a little while. I will admit I'm one of those pain in the ass buyers, right? I know exactly what I want. I've got some specific things that I want about a property, and specific locations and so on and so forth. So it's hard for me to find something that I really want, but when I really want it, I'll go for it.
Yeah.
And that's just how I am. So I can understand that probably agents might think I'm a bit of a tire kicker, but I'm not. I just know what I'm after, and I'm also not going to, pay overs just because of the way that property is sold here. It's just ridiculous.
I can't wait for the day that he walks in. You walk in, Dave. You say, "I'd like to buy this property," and they say, "No, fuck you. I saw you on TikTok. Get out of this house.
No property for you.
No property for you.
You're banned."
Next, please. Next order. That was again another Seinfeld reference. This is the Seinfeld episode today. Man, Dave, we've asked you for your obviously you're going to have some tips or the 3 secrets that buyers need to know. I'm guessing one of them is underquoting, because you've talked about that a fair bit today.
Oh yeah.
So explain underquoting in detail. Like, what should a buyer do if they're faced with this problem?
Okay, so the first thing any buyer needs to do is actually do their own research. And I know that sounds like a really, really basic bloody thing, but I think a lot of people think that research is based on just, what sold and how much did it sell for? And yeah, that's a massive key part of it. But you need to actually do things like go and knock on the doors of the neighbours. Ask people what the area is like. Give you an example. The suburb I live in a suburb called Subiaco, and it's a nice little spot. WA is a little bit different to Sydney, or I should say Perth is a little bit different to Sydney, where in Sydney you tend to have good suburbs. So, for example, Mossman, basically it's all good. Oatley, basically it's all good, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you go to other suburbs, it may not be as affluent, and generally speaking, that affects prices as well. Here in Perth, it's street by street.
Oh wow!
So you can have really affluent suburbs, like for example Cottesloe, which is the second most affluent suburb in the country, and you can have the bad side of Cottesloe as well.
Wow!
Where it's not it's a bit dodgy. So here in Perth, you can have that. Now, I was looking at a place in Subiaco a couple of weeks ago now that was for sale on Subiaco Road. Now, I'm sure Subiaco Road is fine. I have heard some things about it from people basically saying don't. And I've heard some other people say, yeah, it used to be really bad, but, it's a lot better now. It's been gentrified and so on and so forth. Anyway, I went and looked at this place, and then I went down the road and knocked on a couple of neighbours' doors. And I said, hey, look, I'm looking to buy in the area. There's a place up the road that's for sale. Can you tell me a bit about the street? And there are 2 things that you got to look for. One is how they answered the door. And 2 is actually what they say when you ask them the questions. So for starters, they were really cagey answering the door. And it was the middle of the day on a Saturday. You know what I mean? So they were very, what do you want? Kind of.
What are you selling?
And then I asked him a few questions around, have you had any break-ins? Have there been any issues with that kind of stuff? And the answer was, and I kid you not, this was the answer, no more than any other suburb. Now, that's a political answer if ever I've heard one.
Yeah.
It's kind of like saying, well, yes, but, but we get to live in Subi. So you've got to do your research. You've got to ask neighbours what things are like. You've got to ask impartial people as well. Go and speak to the coffee shop owners. Go and speak to the school, the local school. Get a general feel and a vibe. Go back of an evening as well to the suburb that you're looking in. And this is one of the problems with the way Perth property is sold, because it is done so quickly and there's no auction. There's not a 4-week auction campaign, right? You basically got to have your skates on to do all of this. So that's the first thing you got to do. You've got to do your research, and that includes price as well. So when you rock up to the open and they're advertising it for $550, for example, and you know for a fact that the one just down the road just sold for $6, and the one across the way sold for $620, and this one down here sold for $575, there's no way that this is worth $550, and they're underquoting.
Yeah.
So now you've got a couple of options at that point. You can report them. And I will tell you that the burden of proof on reporting people here in WA is obscene, because I've done it a few times, and they want evidence of this and evidence of this and conversations and all that kind of stuff, which is why I document everything now. So you can report them. The alternative is you just pay what they're asking, or you walk away. Those are your options.
Reporting them is almost too annoying. Like I haven't got time for this, you know what I mean? And I mean, the level of research you go to, hats off, man, because like normally someone tells you they do their research. What do you do? I went on realestate.com and I just check every day. But actually, like, I like the idea of actually, like, I will go to the cafe, sit down and see who's around, and speak to the owner, and going at different times is great. Seeing who's there during the day, see who's there at night. But the idea of actually like knocking on doors and saying, hey, do you like living in this suburb? Like that's crazy. I've never really heard anyone do that before, man. Some people must like slam the door in your face.
They do. Yeah, or they just don't answer, or you get the door crack. No, I'm not interested. So I just want to ask you a question. You try and look as unthreatening as you can. Yeah. Which is hard with a face like this.
Yeah.
But
that's right.
An Italian and Asian guy rock up. Where's my money?
Beard in a ponytail, it goes down well.
Mate, what other tips? What other secrets can you share?
Sure. I think one of the big ones is when agents don't give you a price guide, and that kind of ties in with the first one, right? When agents, for example, like the one that I read out to you earlier, they're refusing to give you a price guide. You've got to be prepared to have an encounter with these people. You have to be prepared to be antagonistic, and you have to be prepared to get a bit angry. And it doesn't matter if it's at the open. If an agent says to you, hey, let's take this outside, let's have a chat outside. The first thing you should say is, no, I'm fine right here. It's a public open. We don't have to take this outside to have a chat about this, right? What's your guide? What are you thinking? You've got to, in some cases, and not all cases, and I've always said that through all my TikToks and everything, this is not indicative of all real estate agents. However, there's exceptions which prove the rule. You need to be prepared to have an argument. And that realistically sometimes is the only way to get a price guide out. So I was looking at a place probably about 18 months ago in a suburb a little bit north, up near Scarborough, called Doubleview. And these guys had sold the property next door, and then they'd gotten this one to sell. Now, this one was on the market for, I think it was $750 to $8. I think that was the guide. Anyway, and I spoke to the agent at the door, and she said, the one next door, we just sold the one next door, so it's really indicative of the price and everything. And I said, okay. I said, so what did the one next door go for? I can't tell you because it's under offer. It's not actually sold, and all the bullshit reasons under the sun. And I said, well, give me a range. Just give me a for instance. Oh no, I'm not allowed to do that. I said, bullshit. Yes, you can. You can give me a range. You don't have to tell me the exact sale price, which apparently is illegal for you to do. Which, by the way, is not illegal for any real estate agent to do. But anyway, they love to hide behind that. And it's not illegal to disclose offers either, by the way. It's not illegal. Everyone seems to think it is, but it's not. It's scummy, but it's not illegal to do it. And I said to them, you got to give me for instance. Anyway, it was about a 5 or 6 minute conversation of me basically saying, what did it sell for? What did it sell for? And eventually we got to a point where I said, so, 780? And she was like, around 780. I said, within about 10 grand. And I'm like, okay, so somewhere between 775 and 785. And she went, yeah. And I said, cool, thanks.
Excellent.
That's all I need. But it's a big conversation, and you've got to be prepared to have that, to find that information out. And obviously also as well, call agents and have a good relationship with agents, because they will tell you if you've got a decent agent on your side. There's an agent I've dealt with a few times here in Perth who's a Ray White guy. And the first time I went to an open with him, very cagey. About the 5th time, it was a case of, hey, Dave, how you going? Yeah, good, mate. Hey, what'd you sell that one over the other way for? Oh, look, I shouldn't tell you, but
yeah, it's
610.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No worries. That's all right. I'm not going to blurt it out. I don't care. I just need to know for myself. And here's the thing as well. If there are any agents watching this, and I'm sure there are probably agents that watch your podcast, buyers are not going to tell other buyers because they want the advantage.
Yeah.
I don't go around telling other buyers what things sold for, and so on and so forth, unless the agent pisses me off, in which case I will then go and knock on. I had this happen, actually. There's a place in Subiaco I was looking at as a townhouse, and it sold. The agent actually sold it out from under me. I asked the agent not to sell it until I can get my ducks in line. And I was going to be like 12 hours. I just had to speak to some guys over East. My broker is actually over East. Anyway, I rang and spoke to my broker, Jason, had a chat with him. It was all good. Yep, excellent, no worries at all. Rang the agent. Oh, no, sorry, it's sold. And I said, what do you mean it's sold? I asked you not to submit anything until I can get my offer in. And you agreed to that. Oh, no, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, well, what did it go for? I can't tell you. Okay, so I thought, you know what? Fuck you, that's fine. So I went and knocked on the door of the place and spoke to the owner. And I found out what it sold for. And then I found out what happened and why the sale fell over later, because I ran into her again at the pub, and I got all the information. So it came back on the market. So I went back through. Anyway, and I was in the area, and there was this lady dealing with the real estate agent, and she said, "Oh, wasn't this on the market before? Didn't this sell previously?" And she said, "Oh no, it didn't. It didn't sell." And I turned around, I said, "Actually, it did, and it went for $635."
Don't mess with Dave.
And the agent turned around and went, "Excuse me," and she got real pissed off. "No, excuse me, no, it didn't." I said, "Yes, it did. It went under offer, and the owner, her new place that she was going into, got vandalized, and that's why she pulled the sale." That's what happened. It sold, but it didn't sell.
You're like a real estate superhero, like a Robin Hood, like just going in, helping the people.
Just don't lie to people.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
What's really funny, my mortgage broker's name is Jason as well.
Buyers will not give other buyers an advantage.
Yeah.
They're not going to do it. So, agents, give people price guides, give them a range within 10 grand so people know what they're doing, and buyers, be prepared to have an argument, basically. The final one, which is probably less so important over here in WA than it is over East, where you have auctions, but that is, if you're at an auction, never bid against yourself. Never bid against yourself. Agents are extremely good at getting you to come up and bid against yourself. So you're standing at an auction, and the reserve, for example, is at 1.1. You're at $1.50. And the agent comes over and says, "Look, we're nearly there. I need you to give me a little bit more." And one of the lines they'll often use is, "Look, if this doesn't go, if it doesn't sell now, what happens is we go in there and we go behind closed doors. And behind closed doors, I can't guarantee what happens. At the moment, you're in the box seat. You can see everything that's going on. You see all these people here and everything like that. If you do that, it's all transparent. The second we go in there, it's behind closed doors." Right? Now, that is somewhat true, and it's also somewhat bullshit, right? Because auction conditions continue until midnight the night of the auction. So if they being agents, want to use that and utilize the idea of auctions being the conditions of sale of an auction being there until midnight, then guess what? You are allowed to ask what the other person is up to, because technically it's still an auction.
Yeah.
So never bid against yourself ever. If you're in the box seat, don't bid against yourself. It's not your job to get the vendor down if that's happening. In a hot market, that's very rare that it's going to happen.
Yep.
But we will come into a slower market. Things will start to die off. And then you're going to find people are going to be trying to get buyers to bid against themselves at auctions and so on and so forth. And it's just, no, you just don't want to do it.
That's the thing. If you got the highest bid and the auction's done and you haven't hit reserve, then you go and negotiate with the owner, right? And it's just you and the owner at that stage. So why would you get it makes so much sense. Like, let someone else take it to the next level if they want to, and if they don't, then obviously the interest isn't there. So maybe you've got some balls in your court, so to speak.
That's right.
I think I've bid against myself once. It wasn't at an auction, but I had bought a place, or I was in the process of buying a place or about to buy a place, and the agent comes back and he says, all right, Mike, I've got 4 people interested. Everyone's at the same price. So I'm going around to everyone and I'm asking them, what is your absolute best price? One shot, one chance. What is your best price? And then we're just going to sell it, because the buyer, they want to sell it, and what's your best price? And I said, oh, yeah, no worries, man. That sounds good. Let's do it quickly. What did the other 3 people say? And he's like, oh, I haven't gone to the other 3 people yet. I'm like, oh, great. Well, go to the other 3 people and then come back to me and tell me what they said. And then I'll see if I can beat it or not. And he's like, oh, no, it's not really fair. I'm like, no, it is. It's very fair. Like, go and do that and then come back to me. He's all right. He comes back to me. A few hours later, comes back. He goes, look, have you got another 25? I'm like, yep. And then I ring my mortgage broker, Jason. I'm like, we've got another 25, right? Like, so we did. Yep. So the deal was done. But it's like, man, I could have said my max is 100K more, and then I've stuffed myself. I'm bidding against myself. So you got to be careful with these tactics, man. It's you just never know. The language is so tricky, and every answer that you give, they're reading something out of it that you didn't expect to give them. It's just, it's very tricky.
And they're trying to find out exactly what you've got to spend as well.
Yeah.
Which is something you've got to be careful of. Now, a good agent will be able to get that information out without ever asking the question.
Yeah.
And this is where auctions really work quite well, particularly for the vendor and for the agent, but also for the buyer. Because, if you got a person in an auction market and, they missed out on one, you can say, oh, so were you the underbidder? Yeah, I was. Okay. What'd you bid up to?
Yeah.
1.2. Okay, so they've got 1.2 in the bank.
Yeah.
In the tank to spend. You know that. Whereas in the market that I'm in here in WA, where everything is just submit an offer, agents turn around and they say, oh, what were you thinking? Well, I'm not really going to tell you.
Yeah.
I'll just put in what you think it's worth. So, well, I'm not really interested in putting in what I think it's worth, because what I think it's worth is less than what it'll probably sell for. Particularly in the current market where everything is selling for sort of 50, 60 over what it's actually worth, or about 10%. It's about 11% at the moment. So, yeah, but those are probably the 3 tips for buyers if they're looking in the market, particularly here in WA. And again, like we said at the top of this, it is different over east to how it is here in WA. Here in WA, it's basically the Wild West, it's basically lawless. Whereas in New South Wales and Victoria and so on and so forth, there's a little bit more decorum, or at least I like to think so anyway.
A little bit more decorum. The prices are very different, my goodness. But we've learned a lot here today, I think, and I think it's always interesting. Like if you're not used to going and viewing properties all the time, it can be quite intimidating. You don't know what to say to the agent, what you can, what you can't say. So I think we've learned quite a bit today, just arming us with a few tools and knowing what some of the secrets are and making sure we don't fall into some traps. Jace, you got anything you want to add, or any tips that you've seen? Or
no, I think Dave's covered them. All, yeah, so it's spot on. It's really different because it's very one-sided.
Yeah.
It's not transparent. You've got one person who's a veteran, been doing it for many years. You've got the other side, the purchaser who's buying their first home potentially, or their first investment property. There's a lot of things you don't know what you don't know. But I think the good thing is that you can do a lot of research on the internet these days.
Yeah.
You can watch someone's TikTok account to get familiar with some of the typical tactics. You can go on Reddit to ask about what it's like to live in a suburb without actually having to physically be there.
Yeah, you can listen to Mad Podcasts.
On
my way to work. While you're jogging, walking the
So
dog.
I think that definitely helps a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially not everyone's got the personality or comfort to actually go out and speak to strangers or knock on their doors. Like there are so many options and avenues available to achieve the same result. So I think it's important to actually do that due diligence and put that effort in, because you're spending $500,000, $600,000, and most people don't spend the same amount of due diligence compared to buying a car for 50, 60 grand. They'll watch all the reviews on YouTube. Go to the showroom, talk to different dealerships, but when they're buying a property, they just go straight up on a weekend. Yeah, I like it. We'll buy it. Stuff like that.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind that people don't look at property as an investment. Now, I'm not talking about investors. I'm not talking about that whole landlords and rental crisis and thing, because that's another kettle of fish. What I'm talking about is, you're about to drop $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $1 million, $1.5 million on an asset, right? That's realistically, let's be honest, that's what you're doing. It's the biggest purchase most people will ever make in their life. So why people just walk in and go, I really like it. Yeah, okay, let's go. Instead of, as you said, do the equivalent of when you go and buy a washing machine or a new laptop or a car. Go and do the research. Watch the Cadogan reviews online. Go and see that the what's his face, Marcus Brownlee or whatever it is, the Tech Tips guy. Go and do the research. And it's the same thing with a property. You have to do your research on the area, on whether or not it works for you as well. It might be a great area, but if you've got 2 kids and they're in primary school and there's no decent primary schools around, maybe it's not for you.
Yeah.
Do the research and do it well. And whether that's online or in person or anything like that, that's genuinely the biggest thing that you should do, particularly when spending this amount of money.
Good advice. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think that's a great place to end it, Dave. Thanks for joining us at our little property breakfast, little property barbecue. Man, if you're ever in Sydney, drop by the studio. It'll be great to have you sitting here with us and having a chat as well, man. That'll be awesome. If you ever get the passport ready and come back to real Australia.
It's visa-free travel at the moment. Yeah,
absolutely. For now.
Yeah.
For now.
Amazing, man. Thanks for joining us,
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, we'll talk soon, man.
Very welcome. No worries. Cheers.
Bye.
Take care, mate.
Well, there you go, man. Lots to talk
what an
about
interesting
there.
perspective.
Yeah,
it's all the way from WA.
Yeah, look, a lot of similarities there as well.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good chat. Should we do a prop talk?
Why not?
We should end it with a prop talk, right? Absolutely. We're probably going to have a few prop talks from this episode. So this week's prop talk, Jace, I've asked you to pick it. So I haven't actually seen this.
Yeah, right.
So let's see how we go.
Okay.
Buy 10 rental houses before you're 30 years old. If you can buy 10
that sounds
houses
easy.
before you're 30 and you own those 10 rental houses at the age of 30 and you don't buy another piece of real estate.
That's all you need, 10. Don't buy anymore.
When you're 55, more than likely, all of those properties are going to be paid for. And if, let's just say you still have a balance on all 10 because you put them on 30-year notes, you can sell off more than likely 2 or 3 and pay the rest off. So now you're sitting there with 7 homes.
Very simple maths
You
here.
have tenants in and you have cash flow coming in every month. So think about that. If you literally had 7 rental properties making you $2,000 a month, that's $14,000 a month. That's called financial freedom.
Yeah, think about it. 7 times 2. Let's just do maths, random maths.
Yeah, without a calculator.
Yeah, no calculator required for this one.
Just 10 rental properties.
I know.
That's all I need at 30.
I've made a lot of mistakes now. Now I wish I had done that. Like, what about now? What do I do before I'm 40?
We're over 30 now.
We're screwed, man.
Have you got 10 rental properties?
No.
Neither do I.
Oh, yeah.
What do we do now?
Maybe we can combine our pool. No, we still don't have 10, maybe.
No.
I know this guy, obviously American accent, so it's probably
All
different over
right,
there. All right. But surely it's not easier.
Yeah.
I wish some of these guys would tell us buy 10 before you're 30. Thanks, champ.
Yeah.
People are struggling to buy their first property before they're 30. How are you supposed to get 10 before you're 30? Like, tell us some tips. Tell us how you got a few. And maybe 3 or 4 are okay by the time you're retired. Like, maybe you don't actually need 10. Like, who needs 14? I don't know. It's ridiculous. Jace, I'm going nuts.
Man, that's the problem with stuff like that, right? Because then someone who's outside the industry is watching, thinking, oh, he's using this example, so it must be practical.
Yeah.
So that means when I'm 30, so I'm 25 at the moment trying to save up for my first property.
Yeah.
So other people are onto their 10th property by the time they're 30.
Yeah.
And earning $14,000 a month.
Yeah.
And retired.
Yeah.
Right? You know, so I must be very behind in this financial freedom journey. Right. So that's I think the danger.
It goes back to what we always say as well. If you're buying 10 properties in the first like decade of your sort of career, right? Whether it's investing career or whatever career, these properties are going to be worth, a couple of $100K each maybe. So if you own 10 properties at a couple of $100K each, it's $2 million worth of value when maybe you could have bought like 2 properties. You might see more growth in those. You might see, there's a whole heap of things that the basic maths just doesn't cover.
Yeah.
But I love the most the simplicity. Like, just buy 10 properties before you're 30.
That's
As
right.
if that is
That's
like,
right. So by the time you're 55, you'll have 14 grand.
How didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Oh man,
so
I made
there was
so
a
many
couple
mistakes.
of like very comprehensive technical strategies in that TikTok. Buy 10 properties before you're 30, sell 3 to pay off the debt. So you have 7 paid off properties by the time you're 55. And then you'll be making $14,000 passive income without having to work, and you've achieved financial freedom.
It's easy. Everyone should do it.
That's it.
Then everyone will own 10 properties.
100%.
And there'll be no renters.
100%. You don't need the government social security system, no pension,
Perfect.
no Medicare, because everyone's on 14 grand a month.
How did you find this guy? If you can find guys like that, guys, follow us along. I want to do a full Prop
They
Talk
find
episode
me.
soon. They find you. It's just the algorithm. Prop Talks. So follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok. It's propertynow_co. And let us know. Share them with us. I want to do a full episode of Prop Talks because that'll be fun. Hey man, thanks for joining me this week. The others will be back next week, but I think this was a mad chat. So
Sounds good. See you, mate.
The Property Now podcast offers opinions on Australian property news for informational and entertainment purposes only, and they are general in nature. It does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. It does not constitute professional advice. Always seek expert guidance before making any property-related decisions.